Thank you, Dr. Miller, and thank you all for being here. So we're just going to dive right into this last section on vegan studies. The only thing I'd like to add here is that, I think when folks hear what vegan studies is, they think that all we talk about maybe is like why veganism's good or why it's healthy or why it's this and that. And I really want to impart, and this is by way as an introduction to the papers, is that I kind of view vegan studies more as a category that serves as the center kind of a Venn diagram that brings together things like food studies, environmental studies, political economy, social justice, race studies. Um, we could go on and on. And so it's really a place in which a lot of very, very critical issues intersect. And I always tell the students that, food is anything but food, or the last thing that food is food. What it is mostly a signifier of other issues. So with that, I'd like to introduce our two panelists. Would be James Taylor and Agni Hogaboom. And first is James, and James's paper is titled Ahimsa or Exclusion: Palitana's 2014 Vegetarian Mandate. Turn it over to you, James.
Hello, everyone. Jay Janindra. My name is James Taylor from North Texas, and I'm delighted to be a part of this very enlightening. Thank you to Arahanta Institute and everyone that's made this possible. Uh, I'm going to share with you today some of my research that I've done on the town of Palitana in the Indian state of Gujarat, at the foot of one of Jainism's holiest pilgrimage sites, and how it became the world's first fully vegetarian city by law. All right. The research question that I investigated was, how does the 2014 meat, egg, and slaughter ban in Palitana and its influence on subsequent vegetarian laws in the region reveal the interaction of Jain religious mobilization, Hindu nationalist politics, and caste hierarchies? What consequences do these policies hold for minority rights, the principle of secular governance, and international discussions on food policy and animal rights? Now, if there's anything that I say in this talk that may cause any hurt, misunderstanding, or offense to anyone, knowingly or unknowingly, I sincerely ask for your forgiveness. Uh, Rising nearly 2,000 feet atop the Shatrunjaya hills and the saddles between the hills is a sprawling complex of nearly 900 intricately carved marble temples and smaller shrines. When pilgrims reach the summit after the 2-hour meditative trek, they are met with a breathtaking city of white marble temples stretching across the. This is believed to be a site where the first Jain teacher, or Tirthankar, Urshabanath, and many others attained spiritual liberation and delivered their sermons on the summit. And that 23 of the 24 Tirthankars, all except Nemanat, had visited this location. Now, these temples, with their many glistening spires, were constructed by generations of Jains over a span of 900 years. There are other sacred mountains with Jain temples and shrines nearby, but the Palitana temples are often considered the most sacred pilgrimage site within the Shvetambara tradition. During their significant pilgrimage, often considered a once in a lifetime event, many worshippers circumambulate or go around the Shatrunjaya hills, covering a long distance on foot while offering prayers. And even those who cannot make the arduous journey, whether due to age, health, or distance, or it being on holy days or during a heavy monsoon rain, they still maintain a deep connection with this sacred site. Many keep images or photographs of the Palitana temples in their homes or in their local temples, and they perform pujas before them and meditate on their form, uh, uh, allowing the sanctity of Shatrunjaya to remain part of their spiritual practice. The stone concrete stairs that, with approximately 3,750 stone steps, gently wind along the hill, climb up to the summit. The ground itself is considered so sacred that shoes are removed long before reaching the top, and no leather is allowed anywhere on the hill. Along the way are small shrines and rest stops with drinking water. Food is strictly forbidden, and this religious fast continues until you have returned back to the foot of the hills. Uh, and no one is allowed to stay on the sacred hills overnight, even the priests. Everyone must start their trip back down the hill before sundown. Uh, but below the dense collection of temples and shrines lies the modest pilgrimage town of Palitana, home to only 65,000 people. The small town serves as a gateway to the sacred hills. The town features a number of monasteries, rest houses, restaurants, shops, and small temples. Every year, at least 400,000 pilgrims are estimated to undertake the pilgrimage and pass through the town of Palitana. Many people come as part of a sacred 99-fold repeated pilgrimage tradition, often begun in small groups by young men and women. And it's said that if you climb to the top of the hills at least once in your lifetime, you will more easily attain nirvana due to its sanctity. Now, Ahimsa, the Jain principle of absolute nonviolence toward all living beings, is the foundation of Jainism's vegetarianism. In Palitana, the Jain monks and pilgrims were deeply offended by the hundreds of butcher shops operating in the holy town, with open slaughter of animals and public display of meat for sale. The violence was found to be spiritually polluting to the city's religious atmosphere. So in 1999, after much spirited protests from the Jain community, Palitana officials made the 1.5 mile stretch of road leading toward the temples, they made that a vegetarian only zone. And after this achievement, Jains continued to work with city officials in hopes of extending that vegetarian zone. It was in 2014, over 200 Jain monks and nuns, led by Virag Sagar Maharaj, as you see pictured there, launched a hunger strike or fast until death in order to make Palitana completely himsa mukt or violence free, banning all slaughter, sale of, and consumption of all meat and eggs. This was not a symbolic gesture. Jain ascetics were known for undertaking prolonged fasts, sometimes for weeks and even months. When more than 200 monks and nuns, including very senior figures, began to fast until death, it created immense political pressure on the authorities. This proposed ban would end the businesses of an estimated 260 butcher shops. The local Jain community even went so far as to offer financial compensation to local restaurants and food vendors who sold meat or eggs to help them switch their trades. Now, after 4 days of passionate protests, the governing officials finally relented and promised the fasting Jain ascetics that they would look into the matter and the process would be initiated promptly. The district administration forwarded the resolution to the Gujarat State Urban Development Department. The Gujarat state government got the final call after looking into various aspects, and finally, on August 14th, 2014, Palitana became the first modern city to outlaw meat, eggs, and animal slaughter. The state officials were thoroughly thanked by the enthusiastic Jain community. But a quarter of Palitana was not as enthusiastic. Local Muslims argue that the 2014 ban, pushed by the Jain monks, discriminates against their religious and dietary preferences. Uh, Meat forms an essential part of many Muslim households, and the ritual animal sacrifice during holidays is a core religious obligation. A leader of a local Muslim association told the Indian Express, quote, "If we are not allowed to offer sacrifice, we will not remain Muslims." The ban also severely impacted the livelihoods of fishermen and others in Palitana's coastal economy. In 2014, a fisherman filed a petition in the Gujarat High Court challenging the prohibition, arguing it violated his right to practice his occupation and religious freedom. Uh, The 2014 Sample Registration System Survey in India is the largest demographic survey in the world, covering about 1.7 million households and 7.5 million people within a random sampling of villages and urban areas. It revealed that a significant portion of the Indian population, specifically 71%, is non vegetarian, uh, challenging the widely held belief that India is primarily a vegetarian nation. But you'll notice that Gujarat, in this graph here, is not the vegetarian state in India. Apparently, only about 40% of Gujaratis eat meat. Gujarat stands behind Rajasthan, Haryana, and even Punjab in being home to vegetarians. Vegetarianism in Gujarat is largely the practice among people due to the dominant Vaishnava Hindu culture in the state. In Hinduism, while many sects practice vegetarianism, Vaishnavism is the most universal and strict in prescribing a vegetarian diet as a fundamental requirement. Hindus form 88% of Gujarat's population. Jains form about 1% of Gujarat. Muslims and Christians form about 10% of the population. But interestingly, Muslims have a formal minority status, while Jains do not, despite both being de facto minorities. Locally in Palitana, the religious majority in Palitana, the religious majority is unclear. Uh, the censuses have been unclear on this. Some have argued that Jains and vegetarians are actually in the minority, but the number of Jains actually in the town at any moment is often much higher since it's a major pilgrimage destination. Uh, 2014 was a transformative year for Indian Jains, as they were granted legal minority religious status in January of that year, affirming their distinct identity and securing protections for their temples and educational institutions. By May of that year, the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, led by Narendra Modi of Gujarat, achieved an unprecedented electoral victory, assuming power in New Delhi and amplifying dharmic agendas that resonated with Jain values. The BJP had ruled Gujarat since 1998. By that August, Palitana was the first fully vegetarian city. The BJP facilitated the ban, aligning with Jain and Vaishnava Hindu vegetarianism while not directly initiating it. Their leadership enabled the swift response to impose this sweeping vegetarian mandate. This possibly reflects a sort of unholy alliance between the Jains and Hindu nationalists, targeting Muslim and Dalit meat economies and creating a possible religious hierarchy. This sort of government overreach could undermine India's secular democratic system, favoring the Jain and Hindu ideals over minority rights. Palitana's 2014 ban set a precedent, as by 2021, cities like Ahmedabad, Rajkot, uh, Vadodara, and Junagadh uh, followed with their own vegetarian mandates. The Times of India reported that these cities banned public display and preparation of non vegetarian food, required meat vendors to cover their stalls, and restricted meat sales near schools and religious sites. They justified this by claiming meat displays hurt religious sensitivities and children's well being, or even accusing meat vendors of traffic jams or have them restricted to have them restricted. More than a decade after the ban, Palitana remains the world's only legally vegetarian city. Recent reports confirm that the prohibition on the sale, consumption, and slaughter of meat, fish, and eggs is still fully enforced with municipal limits. Violations continue to carry penalties. Numerous reports highlights a significant increase in vegetarian restaurants, street food vendors offering Jain-friendly cuisine, and a measurable rise in pilgrimage and in tourism. However, these changes have not come without serious challenges and contradictions. The ban has raised concerns about minority exclusion, particularly among Muslim and other non-Jain residents whose dietary traditions and livelihoods have been directly affected. It's also fueled debates about cultural and social tensions in an otherwise pluralistic society. Additionally, the strict prohibition could possibly give rise to an unregulated black market meat trade, creating potential risks to public health and animal welfare. And perhaps most strikingly, uh, dairy products remain central to both the local economy and Jain ritual life. Now, male calves, steers, and the spent mother dairy cows are reportedly transported sometimes outside Palitana's jurisdiction, where they are slaughtered for beef and leather, revealing a significant loophole in how the ban is enforced and exposing the selective application of ahimsa in practice. And now some animal activists say this isn't a loophole, it's an inevitable economic reality of any dairy system. Dairy and beef leather are interconnected industries worldwide, including in India, where the country remains a major beef exporter despite cow protection rhetoric. And one interesting part about this is adding to the extraordinary sanctity of Shatrunjaya, this sacred landscape is also home to occasional sightings of the extremely rare Asiatic lion, the last wild population of this majestic subspecies on Earth, primarily centered in Gujarat's nearby Gir forest. There's only 891 alive today in Gujarat. Recently, viral videos have captured these lions calmly walking alongside pilgrims on the ancient steps. It's a striking image that illustrates the living reality of ahimsa. Even a powerful predator can move through this holy space in harmony, respected as a fellow living being, peacefully coexisting together. Animal rights, climate, and public health advocates have long called for sweeping restrictions on meat consumption and meat bans. Palitana offers a rare, real world example of exactly that policy in action. The 2014 ban demonstrates that with strong cultural backing, religious legitimacy, and sustained political will, governments can implement far reaching dietary mandates that deliver meaningful ethical, environmental, and health benefits. Yet the Palitana experiment also reveals serious trade offs. It shows how such policies can deepen social divisions, marginalize minority communities. The lesson is clear. If animal rights, climate, and health movements want to pursue similar large scale dietary change, they must prioritize genuine inclusive deliberation, respect for cultural diversity, and careful attention to equity. Otherwise, even well intentioned policies risk feeling resentment and long term backlash. Now, that's the conclusion of my presentation, and I look forward to answering any possible questions that you may have. And thank you for your attention.